Suffrage to me is more than the fight to vote. It started the fight for better education, equal pay and women's rights in general. And it's an important time to remember powerful women like Kate Sheppard, who despite the consequences stood up for what's important, their rights. Because of their efforts, today's women can stand on their shoulders to keep fighting. This anniversary, we need to question what we're doing ourselves and as a country to keep fighting for women's rights. We have to continue the vision that was started many years ago.
To me, suffrage is a tool that the women of the 19th century placed in our hands, and we use this tool to try and attain our rights now. Reproductive rights, the right to be free from violence, equal pay, all these things are part of the legacy that we've received from them. Feminism is kind of like, it's a little bit like archaeology. We are excavating our natural human rights from the dead ground of patriarchy. Each generation takes off another layer, and it's the work of many generations. And all of us are using the tools that the suffragists placed in our hands. And the work continues.
Suffrage means so many different things to me, and honestly, it's all kind of rushing in right now, standing in this room, surrounded by a whole lot of men on these walls staring down at me, and it makes it really real of how far we've come. It also makes it really real that I don't have to think about suffrage a lot in my day-to-day. It's a massive privilege. And it's also a realisation that with that privilege comes a massive sense of responsibility to act and to pass the baton of voice onto people who really still need that and who haven't had their voices shared yet. So to me, suffrage in its core essence is the fight for equality, for equity through the use of voice, and knowing when to use that, knowing when to speak up, and knowing when to pass that baton. And that is just as important now as it has been ever for both people and also our planet.
What suffrage means to me is the significance of what these women behind me did. 28 November 1893, bringing in the vote for women is significant for me because it wasn't just European women. It was all women, and including Indigenous. And only 3 weeks later were the Māori women able to make their first parliamentary vote to Māori electoral seats. That's really significant because we know that women got the vote. This was the first country in the world that gave women the vote. But the vote for Indigenous women is very significant. If we look at our cousins across the ditch in Australia, it wasn't until 1962 that the First Nations Aboriginal women were able to have the vote, but that still excluded Queensland. If we look at Canada, they weren't able to, all First Nations women weren't able to get the vote until 1982. 1982. So when we celebrate our right to vote in this country, we need to think about, as Indigenous, with our Indigenous sisters, what that meant. It was a trailblazer for all women around the world. All women. I was deeply moved because I thought, thinking of our Aboriginal sisters and thinking of our First Nations sisters, that they did not have the right to vote, that they were second-class citizens. And that's actually how women in this country must have felt before we had the right to vote. You had no right to have a voice. So suffrage for me is so significant, and it isn't a never-ending story. There's still things that we have to do, and there's still countries around the world where women do not have the right, and I think New Zealand should be a beacon. for them. If we look at today's movements, you've got pay equity, and we've got pay parity. It isn't just in the history books, but even that, what's in the history books is significant, and I think we should never forget that.
I wanted to speak in my heart language, Arabic, so to speak about Suffrage Day for all of Egyptian. Suffrage Day means in Arabic حق التصويت، وكلنا كان عندنا حق التصويت من زمان جدا، من أول ما الإسلام كان ظهر من أكتر من 1400 سنة. كلنا كان عندنا حق التصويت، كلنا كان عندنا كل الحقوق في الإسلام. لكن طبعا بعد ما مجتمعاتنا اتغيرت وبلادنا اتغيرت كلنا اختلفنا وعاداتنا وتقاليدنا اختلفت، فبدأ حق المرأة في التصويت يختفي تماما. بدأت بعد كده مطالبات بأن المرأة تشترك في الحياة السياسية، وطبعا بعد ثورة 1952 بدأت المرأة تتنفس شوية وبدأت تشارك في الحياة الانتخابية، وبدأ يبقى كمان مش بس حقنا للتصويت، لا كمان حقوقنا ان احنا ندخل البرلمان. وقتها كانت كل النساء في مصر حاسة انها فعلا ليها أهمية وليها دور، ده اختلف شوية عني، لأن وقت ما أنا بدأت أفهم إيه هو حق المرأة في التصويت كان عندنا نفس الرئيس لمدة 30 سنة. فطبعا كلكم تتخيلوا يعني إيه رئيس لمدة 30 سنة، يعني كلنا عارفين إن دي انتخابات بس كلنا عارفين النتيجة، فما كانتش كويسة بالنسبة لي أو ما كانتش تجربة مفيدة جدا بالنسبة لي إن أنا أصوت في مصر. لكن أنا فاكرة كويس جدا اليوم اللي بدأت أصوت فيه كان في بعد 25 يناير 2011. كلنا بدأنا نتنفس تاني، كلنا بدأنا نقول لا احنا عايزين الأفضل لبلدنا، كلنا قلنا لا احنا هننزل ونشارك في الانتخابات، ودي كانت مهمة جدا لكل المصريين. لما جيت نيوزيلاند كان الموضوع مختلف شوية، لأن أخدت مني سنتين علشان أعرف إيه حقوقي وإيه الحاجات اللي ممكن أطالب بيها، وعلى بال ما اتعلمت وفهمت أخدت مني شوية. بس أنا فاكرة كويس قوي الانتخابات في 2017 لما بدأت أقرأ عن كل الأحزاب اللي موجودة وأفهم أكتر، ووقتها فعلا حسيت إن صوتي هيفرق وإن صوتي فعلا هيعمل فرق لنيوزيلاند. أنا بقول لكل النساء في مصر اوعوا تسيبوا أبدا فرصة إن انتوا تصوتوا وتشاركوا في الانتخابات، لأن دي حاجة فعلا مهمة لكل بلدنا. Suffrage means a lot to me, as it's not just the right to vote, it's the right to be listened to. So all the women have the right to speak on behalf of themselves, to even to have the financial capacity, independent financial capacity. And it's not just about the right to vote. We all have this right, but also we need to feel also as independent and heard. My experience with voting in Egypt wasn't really good, because for 22 years of my life, I haven't even experienced any voting or election time, because we have the same president for 30 years. So you can imagine how systematic it was and how it was easy, the result for all the Egyptians. So we didn't care even about voting or going to the election, because we know the result, what is it? And after the revolution in 2011, all the Egyptians had the right to vote again, and we felt really valuable. We feel that our voice will make a difference for our country. So I remember the day, it was like a dream for me to go to the election place and put my votes on the box. So that was really great for all of us. Once we moved to New Zealand, my experience was really different too, again, because it took me 2 years to understand my rights and responsibility here. And I was really impressed when I hear that I can vote even without to be a citizen. And then I remember the day that I put my voice in the box, and I felt really valuable. So I feel that these women are really had a great things for New Zealand, and also in Egypt too. I remember too that lots of women there had a great job to change the world for all the Egyptians. So please remember the day. This is not just the day for women to vote, it's a day to women to be participated in every single time in this country. Thank you.